I'm about as real as they come.
All my beats tailored by Joe. House Digital.
Maserati, Rick in Detroit. Convertible bird in Miami. Graduated summa cum laude. Strip club made a tsunami. Carlton Hines with the ball game. Grateful Edmonds with the snowflakes. Craig Pettis in the M-Town. Sal Magluta with the boat game. Falcone with the cocaine. Like Freeway Ricky with the plug game. Like Monster Cody in South Central. Larry Davis from close range.
We had come out of an era of severe racial strife, which involved the burning down of cities. We were in the midst of a terrible, controversial war that was ripping the country to pieces.
I think that one of the significant points about the Vietnam War and drugs is that there were two fronts in that war. There was drug use on the home front, but there was a lot of drug use in Vietnam itself.
Drugs were a gift to a lot of these soldiers that were knee-deep in horror every day and saw the most repugnant things you could possibly imagine.
Get really stoned. Then, who like who cares about the war?
You think that we were using drugs on the home front? What was going on in Vietnam was the U.S. military was using even harder drugs. They were shooting up heroin.
It's the only way you can feel good in Nam,
How available is it in Nam? I used to buy it off a kid who was 8 or 9 years old.
8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old.
Initially, it wasn't that easy to find heroin in Vietnam, but because of the CIA and their alliances with various warlords, suddenly South Vietnam was flooded with very pure, very cheap heroin.
I was over in Vietnam a number of times with DEA. Saw stuff that was unbelievable.
And this is one of the places GIs buy drugs. Sometimes they stay inside until after they've had their fix. Other addicts wait outside, and a girl comes out, passes them the heroin, and makes the sale. It's all done in broad daylight.
I saw soldiers using drugs constantly. It was certainly accepted in the culture over there. I'm not sure I blamed them. I might have done the same thing.
In the spring of 1970, you had 2 people overdosing a month. By that fall, there were 2 people overdosing a day. 1 in 4 servicemen became addicted to heroin.
He came back a war hero, wounded twice, Purple Heart, but also a drug addict. He was a drug addict.
Well, 2 things are happening. Number one, we're hearing about the soldiers becoming addicts, but we're also beginning to get flooded with heroin coming back from Vietnam. And one of the early cases I worked on was a group of sergeant majors in Vietnam who were shipping heroin back in body bags.
There might have been soldiers bringing it back for their own use and maybe in small amounts to do business. But really, the heroin being smuggled famously back in body bags was being smuggled by the CIA. It was really to support the warlords of Thailand, who were our allies. It was to secure their favor.
Many people would maintain that Air America, the CIA's operation in Southeast Asia, was responsible for a lot of the heroin that came in.
The result was blowback. More drugs on the streets of American cities.
I saw my former classmates returning from Vietnam. Many of them came home with drug addiction problems. That was when I really became aware that there was a drug issue.
When I was in prison, many of my fellow prisoners were ex-Vietnam veterans who acquired huge heroin habits over there and came back and found that they couldn't maintain their habits in America. And so they reverted to what they knew best, which was weapons and tactics. So they'd rob banks.
it was becoming obvious that there was a direct correlation between street crime and heroin addiction. And this got Nixon's attention very quickly.
We must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one in the United States.
The North Carolina mob is run by men who know a lot about the military. 10 of the top men in this organization are former sergeants in the Army or the Air Force. Federal authorities identify this man as the head of the North Carolina mob, Leslie Ike Atkinson.
There is no doubt in my mind, I know exactly how it got started. And I know the person that started it. I know I also know who involved the DEA in this and the Customs Service. And that person was Frank Lucas. And how it came about was, I have this guy, the Leon Ellis in Bangkok, to do this furniture for me because I don't want to hire no ties to do it. While Frank was visiting me, with me, I took him to Thailand for 5 days. While he was doing that, he saw Leon Ellis out in the backyard, and before I could get downstairs good, he's out there talking to Leon Ellis. And when he asked Leon, "What in the world are you doing in Thailand?" I busted in and said that he's making coffee. That's where Frank Lucas decided in his mind that we was bringing drugs in the coffee. He ain't bought no drugs no damn well. I fed him a story about Leon, and now he's trying to capitalize on it. I had him using my company card. He can't go nowhere without him. I put him to sleep. I wake him up. I put him on the plane. I have him get his passport. I paid for his visa. Man was going to give him no visa. He had the record of what? That's why I told his wife, Shorty, and I don't remember Shorty and Wade, my aunt, but my nephew, they were there. I told them to wait out here. I'd take Frank in first. I paid $100 to the Thai embassy to give him a visa because of what his record was at the time. Two Italians stepped out of the thing. And they looking at me funny. I'm looking at them funny. What the hell's going on? So I just kept right on walking, picked the pace up towards my office, and got behind the glass. And one of them asked me just before I go in, he said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, my name is such a very nice guy." But I mean, it didn't look very nice, but and the other introduced himself and everything. They said, "Want to talk to you?" I said, "Yeah. Come on in my place in here. I got my friends in here too. I'm in here behind the glass. Everybody can see me. Everything happens. You can't come up here and do nothing unless it's seen." And so we get in to talk. And they come in, huddle around and everything. They say, Frank, Frank? I said, "Yeah, hello, Frank." I said, "What's happening?" He said, "Frank owes us 50 grand. And he said, for us to get it from you, you would give it to us when we get out."
Yo. We back. It's your boy Papa-Lot. Mob ties. We on our way to North Carolina with it. Goldsboro to be exact. Where we gonna cover a big dealer that was a big deal by the name of Ike Atkinson, also known as Sergeant Smack. Now a little bit about Ike. He was born in North Carolina in Goldsboro back in 1925. Sadly, he passed away on November 11th, 2014 at the age of 88. He got his start in the game when he moved to Bangkok back in the mid 60s, and he became a partner in a bar down in Bangkok. A lot of people might know him, or some people, I should say, some people might know him from being portrayed in the movie American Gangster as Frank's cousin, the dude that was in the service. But let's get this straight. He was no kin to Frank Lucas, and he disputed a lot of the stuff that was represented in the movie. And it's almost, let's just say it's something like Frank Lucas stole his story. Frank Lucas actually used to buy from him. He was the dude that had to connect down in Bangkok. He was the one making the moves. We got an episode coming up on the King of Opium, who was the one that was actually supplying them. So y'all stay tuned for that. It's going to be a dude by the name of Kun Sa. But yeah, he was a stand-up dude. I want to say he was sentenced to 31 years in prison. He came home, stayed down. I want to say he got a book out called Sergeant Smack. I'm going to try to leave a link to that in the description at the bottom if y'all want to check that out. Yeah, I guess the one, I kind of talk about what stood out to me sometimes. The one thing that stood out to me as far as one of the things that he was disputing that Frank Lucas was saying was Frank Lucas said that he was smuggling the shit in coffins of dead GIs. Ike disputed that and said he was using hollowed out furniture. He had a guy that would come and would do his shit to the furniture, take a lot of the parts out, add some shit in there. And that's how he would get in with that. I ain't gonna give up the whole story. We're gonna get into it. It's your boy Poplar. Mobb, ties.
Leslie Ike Atkinson was a U.S. Army Master Sergeant and convicted drug trafficker, believed to have been a major figure in smuggling heroin into the United States from Southeast Asia from about 1968 to 1975. Atkinson moved to Bangkok, Thailand in the mid-1960s and became a partner in Jack's American Star Bar. In 1968, he entered into the drug trade from the Golden Triangle through a Chinese Thai man named Lukai Ruby Wart, who was a business partner in Atkinson's bar. Atkinson and his organization bought heroin at about $4,000 a kilogram before being cut 4 ways and transporting it to the United States by military personnel. Flown on U.S. Air Force aircraft, the heroin would eventually arrive at Fort Bragg, North Carolina and other military bases and be sold to American distributors for $25,000 a quarter kilo, netting a profit of about $96,000 per kilo. Atkinson's downfall came in 1975. A shipment of heroin was due to arrive at 2 addresses in Fayetteville, North Carolina, each belonging to elderly black women. An Army serviceman would come to pick up the shipments, saying it had been accidentally mailed to the wrong address. The plan had worked before, but this time one woman contacted the postal authorities, the other, fearing she had been sent a bomb, contacted the police. The police found Atkinson's palm prints on one of the heroin bags, and he was arrested on January 19, 1975 in his home in Goldsboro. He was convicted the following year and was sentenced to 31 years in prison. Atkinson was released in 2007. According to the DEA, Atkinson was in fact the main supplier of heroin to Harlem drug lord Frank Lucas after the two met in Bangkok around 1974. Atkinson takes issue with the most famous aspect of Lucas' operation, the so-called cadaver connection, in which heroin was smuggled in the coffins of dead American soldiers coming back from Vietnam, instead claiming he smuggled the drugs inside furniture. In the 2007 film American Gangster, Atkinson is represented by the character Nate, played by Roger Guenver-Smith. The film depicts Nate as being Lucas' cousin. However, Frank Lucas claims that Ike is married to one of his cousins, which made him akin to family. The cadaver connection was a supposed heroin smuggling operation involving hiding heroin in the American serviceman's coffins. Frank Lucas, one of Ike's partners in the U.S., claims that this is how Ike smuggled the narcotic out of Thailand. Ike flew a country boy North Carolina carpenter over to Bangkok. We had him make up 28 copies of the government coffins. Except we fixed them up with false bottoms, big enough to load up with 6, maybe 8 kilos. It had to be snug. You couldn't have shit sliding around. Ike was very smart, because he made sure we used heavy guys' coffins. He didn't put them in no skinny guys, Frank Lucas, but Atkinson, who used his lifelong friend Leon as the carpenter, claims he never used coffins to smuggle the heroin. It is a total lie that's fueled by Frank Lucas for personal gain. I never had anything to do with transporting heroin in coffins or cadavers. He never had any association with constructing coffins for transporting heroin or drugs. On the contrary, Leon was in Bangkok hollowing out teak furniture. One time, when I was in Bangkok, Frank came to visit. We used teak furniture to smuggle the heroin and we were getting a shipment ready. Frank barged in and went right to the back. "What are you doing?" Frank asked me. I was caught off guard, and didn't want him to know how I was moving drugs. The only thing I could think of to say was, "We are making coffins." Atkinson was charged in 1987, while in prison, for his part in yet another heroin smuggling operation which he was allegedly running from prison. He was charged following a 15-month investigation where an undercover agent, posing as a corrupt German diplomat, bought 5 pounds of heroin on Atkinson's behalf in Thailand. 6 other inmates and a correctional officer were also charged. The CO, Samuel Arendt, 36, was charged because he was smuggling the letters out of prison to prevent the authorities from reading the letters. Also charged was Mr. Atkinson's nephew, Philip Wade Atkinson, 40, who bought the heroin from the undercover German diplomat at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, where he was immediately arrested. Atkinson was released from prison in 2008, and died in November 2014 at the age of 88. For more information, please follow the link below the video.